Nick Cleveland Stout is a research fellow in the Democratizing Foreign Policy program at the Quincy Institute. He's also done a lot of research on U.S.-Brazil relations as a 2023 Fulbright Scholar. And he has really done some excellent reporting, several major scoops on what Israel is doing in flooding American digital media and new media with all kinds of covert cash in order to essentially launch a pro-Israel influence campaign inside the United States without any real constraints of law or transparency. Nick, so great to see you. First of all, congratulations on these stories. I think they're incredibly important. Really good scoops. And I'm thrilled to have you on the show to talk about them. And I want to begin because you have, like, I would say, three different stories that you've kind of yourself unleashed on the American public. One that involves this program to pay influencers covertly by the Israeli government, and you describe it as being $7,000 per post. Another regarding FARA documents that were in fact formed by this kind of sketchy group that's targeting Christian influencers who will produce pro-Israel content. And then a third involving Trump's former campaign manager, who's also involved in various programs along these lines. So just let's take this one by one and tell us what it is that your reporting has uncovered.
Definitely, yeah. So thanks so much for inviting me on the show, by the way. Great to be here with you. And the first story, or the one that you started with, is that Israel is paying influencers $7,000 per post on social media platforms. And I found this just on the Foreign Agents Registration Act. There's this firm which registered very recently in the last few months called Bridges Partners, which really is kind of a ghost. Like, there's no information online about this firm, no LinkedIn page, no website. I've tried to reach out to the few people that we know are connected with it. But what was detailed in that filing with the Department of Justice was that they are overseeing this cohort of influencers that are being paid by Israel. And we're in the middle of the program right now, actually, and it's going to be running through November, at which point, it could be renewed. We don't know. But I think what's important for people to know about this is that we don't actually know as of right now who the influencers are. But essentially, what we do know is that this is a $900,000 contract. There's between 14 and 18 influencers that are part of this program. And I think this is the first indication. I mean, we know that Israel has flown out influencers. They've met with them in the past. But I think this is the first real smoking gun that they are actually not only doing that, but paying influencers directly to post on behalf of Israel. And again, they're not identifying themselves and when they're posting on social media, they're also not identifying that those posts are distributed on behalf of a foreign government, in this case, Israel. And I think part of the reason why there's that $7,000 per post figure, why it's so astronomical, is one, there's a premium for foreign governments. We see that there's a distinction between firms that file under FARA versus the Lobby Disclosure Act. Usually clients have to pay more if they're a foreign government. But two is that Israel is a very controversial country right now in a lot of ways. The UN came down with this decision that it is carrying out a genocide. And so there's an extra premium that comes with that. And so that's the first story. The second is that Israel paid another firm to basically, and this is Trump's former campaign manager, Brad Parscale, who was actually the Trump official in 2016 that hired Cambridge Analytica, which, if people remember that kind of scandal-ridden firm that was tasked with carrying out this targeting campaign. And so Brad Parscale, what he's doing is he was hired on a $6 million contract, so much larger actually than the influencer cohort contract, in part to create websites and digital content that is then used to train ChatGPT. Because people are increasingly using ChatGPT like a search engine, like Google, and the idea being that they can help frame. Israel wants to try and frame responses to questions. When people ask, for instance, is Israel committing a genocide? Is Israel committing war crimes? Tell me about the history of U.S. Or the U.S.-Israel relationship, or Israel-Palestine. Then if Israel can try and manipulate that, in its favor, then it'll give more favorable answers to people that are using ChatGPT in that way. And I think a through line between a lot of these stories is that they're very much geared towards targeting Gen Z. They're very much geared towards targeting young people. And in fact, in some of these contracts, it'll explicitly say that. It'll say, we want to try and sway the opinion of Gen Z, in social media platforms, on ChatGPT, because they've broken so sharply in their support for Israel. And then the last one you mentioned was just a tweet that I had about another firm that just registered under FARA, I believe just a couple of days ago, that is carrying out outreach in the Western United States, specifically in California, with Christian organizations, and they're mostly in Southern California. And that one's quite a bit smaller. It's like $300,000. But all of this goes to show that Israel is very concerned about the swaths of the population in the U.S. that are breaking or that are questioning the historical ironclad support for Israel, and goes to show the lengths that they're going to try and reconcile with that. Instead of actually changing their actions.
Yeah, you know what's so amazing, Nick, is so much of this is taking place right out in the open, and yet a lot of it is material that isn't being reported, things that need to be found through a lot of journalistic digging, like you just demonstrated. But oftentimes they're things that the Israelis say right out in the open, or their proxies in the United States say right out in the open. And just to give a couple of examples, right before the United States Congress voted to ban TikTok or force its sale, something that the Democrats got on board with, that Joe Biden got on board with after October 7th, the chairman of the ADL, Jonathan Greenblatt, went on MSNBC and said, look, there's too much anti-Israel criticism being allowed on TikTok. It has to be shut. And then weeks later, they obeyed that order, the Congress did, and voted to ban it. Then Jonathan Greenblatt, after Donald Trump won, and it was clear that there would have to be a forced sale of TikTok, went to speak to his supervisors in Tel Aviv and gathered them all there and said, look, the most important war that we have right now is not against Hezbollah or against Hamas. The most important war is making sure that we conquer TikTok, that we control TikTok. And now here we are just a few months later, and the largest single donor to the IDF, Larry Ellison, the multi-billionaire fanatical supporter of Israel, is now in control of TikTok, while he and his son buy CBS and Paramount as well. And I want to show you some comments that Prime Minister Netanyahu himself made while meeting with American influencers, because I think what's so important here is this is not Netanyahu talking about the importance of disseminating messaging inside Israel. This is a foreign influence campaign where they're specifically targeting American influencers and American audiences. So let's just show these comments right out of Netanyahu's own mouth. I just need a second before we have this, but I think it's very important. I'm just gonna stall a little bit, pretend that I'm saying things that are important.
The base of our support in the United States, that is being challenged systematically. A lot of this is done with money. Money of NGOs, vast. Money of governments, vaster. Okay? We have to fight back. How do we fight back? Our influencers. I think you should also talk to them if you have a chance. To that community, they're very important. And secondly, we're going to have to use the tools of battle. You know, the weapons change over time. You can't fight today with swords. That doesn't work very well, okay? And you can't fight with cavalry. That doesn't work very well. And you have these new things, you know, like drones, things like that. I won't get into that. But we have to fight with the weapons that apply to the battlefields in which we're engaged. And the most important ones are the social media. And the most important purchase that is going on right now is TikTok, number one. And I hope it goes through because it can be consequential. And the other one, what's the other one?
So, I mean, Netanyahu is not just talking about the importance of using social media weapons inside the United States, but he's talking about using what he regards as weapons of war, essentially against the American public. What do you make of Netanyahu's view and how it's reflected in these programs you uncovered?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, maybe not the brightest group when he asked the most important purchase happening right now, they said followers. I'm not sure what they were.
I know I had my hand up in the air saying, pick me, it's TikTok. I mean, it's sort of obvious.
Yeah, I think we know. But I don't think either of us are getting invited in that room. Yeah, I mean, it really is revealing that in the last month, there have been 6 firms that have registered under FARA, under the premier foreign lobbying transparency law, for Israel. And that's more, that's very abnormal. That's more than the amount of firms that registered for Israel in the last 2 years. And so it's clear, and also this week, Israel increased its Hasbara public diplomacy budget by $40 million. And so it's clear that this is something that they are investing in, that they are that they see it as a threat, that only 9% of adult Americans between the age of 18 and 34 approve of Israel's military action in Gaza. They see that as a threat. Not only are these people, and it's not just young people, but it is in particular young people, because not only can these people hold elected leaders in the U.S. to account, try and get their officials to support the Block the Bombs Act, for instance, but they're also future leaders. And it's clear that Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu sees this as a threat to continued U.S. support for Israel, because Israel needs the U.S.'s support to carry out this genocide in Gaza. And so it is indicative to me that it almost comes across as desperate in a way, because when you look at what these firms are doing, I'm actually not convinced that they're even going to be all that effective. I mean, one of the firms, the Clock Tower X, which is the firm that was founded by Brad Parscale, the former campaign manager, his goal per month is 50 million impressions across social media platforms, which might sound like a lot, but I'm sure that, for instance, Glenn, you get more than that on just Twitter alone. So it's it's almost like they're throwing money at the wall trying to change this. I mean, impressions are kind of the easiest metric for social media, and it's not really an indication that you're going to be all that effective in trying to change the conversation. I think people have their antennas up too when they see a sort of astroturfed top-down campaign like this.
Yeah, well, I think your reporting and discussions about it are important precisely to alert people that they are being propagandized by a foreign power. And I think you're absolutely right. When the Israelis are throwing millions of dollars around, there are a lot of people who are smelling that money and, coming in with PowerPoint presentations, talking the buzz of social media influencing to people who probably don't understand it very well. And a lot of it is just profit driven, but clearly a lot of it is propagandistic. And you had a really interesting anecdote about an influencer who went there and kind of came back with his mind completely changed. And this has been something that I've been trying to get people to understand for a long time. Israel will pay almost anybody with influence to go and visit Israel. We see all the time members of our Congress going over there instead of going to their home district. They make their pilgrimage to Israel. They spend their summer recess there, a traditional time when they used to go and have town halls with their constituents. Now they go to Israel. And Israel has very specific programs for almost every kind of person. So if you're a progressive and you go over there, you're going to get a progressive tour. If you're a corporatist and you're interested in startups in Silicon Valley, they have a special one for you. If you're black, if you're gay, if you're a feminist, all different ones for you. And a lot of people wonder why people like Richie Torres, who represents, the single poorest district in the United States, spends so much of his time, spouting Zionist talking points. He made those trips to Israel, and they show him, gay bars in Tel Aviv, and then films about what Hamas does to gay people. There's all kinds of these conversions that happen as a result of these trips that are very scientifically geared towards specific demographics. What's the kind of reporting you've been able to do about how some of these influencers are basically brainwashed in a very short period of time and then come back almost with a completely different understanding of Israel?
Yeah. So there was an article detailing some of the influencers that went on a trip in August, and a lot of them. It's interesting. I mean, a lot of it is very coordinated. I noticed, for instance, I mean, one of the consistent talking points that comes out of these trips is that there's not a famine happening in Gaza. That it's just a complete, which is just a complete denial of reality, right? We've seen this time and time again. There's all kinds of independent corroboration of this, and I saw one instance of like one of these influencers saying, with a picture of food, saying, "Oh, look, there's food in Gaza. This is all a lie." And then another one of the influencers on the same trip quote tweeted it, saying something very similar, that it's fake news. And so they're clearly given, they're told a lot of lies, because a lot of what Israel is saying is dealing with a completely different set of facts than what the rest of the world is seeing with our own two eyes. And so they meet with a lot of top officials. They meet with a lot of IDF soldiers. They meet with people who have fought in previous wars. They, in this case, in this most recent one, they even met with Benjamin Netanyahu himself. In past trips, they've met with Mike Huckabee, who Trump once mistakenly called the governor of Israel, and is clearly very, very close with top Israeli officials. So, they are very much exposed to one side, and a side that, is not just trying to express the positive, the friendly nature of the U.S.-Israel relationship. It's much more sinister than that, because this is a country, again, that is carrying out a genocide. It's not it's not just like, hey, look how great the food in Tel Aviv is. So it goes far beyond that. And the anecdote that you mentioned, there was this guy who went in this August trip, and he was quoted in this article saying that, he was a little bit skeptical of the U.S.-Israel relationship beforehand, but after the trip, he is fine with the U.S. sending as many weapons as we do to Israel.
Yeah, imagine just changing your mind when you know that you're on a state-sponsored propaganda tour, but it's also kind of a testament to the efficacy of the propaganda itself. One of the things you mentioned is this kind of attempt to cast the propaganda in terms of Gen Z jargon, Gen Z energy, and the like. We saw this, over the last 4 years when the CIA would, proudly tout its non-binary, neurodivergent, racially diverse operatives in the field. We have the FBI doing that constantly with a lot of, days to celebrate its female agents or whatever, completely kind of covering up the reality of these institutions with this sort of very superficial appeal to progressive ideas. And one of the people I believe you're mentioning who's become an influencer that has gotten a lot of attention solely by virtue of the pro-Israel content he's been doing, and we don't know if he is on this list of paid influencers. I believe he has denied that he is. So I'm showing it to you not for that reason, but just to give you a sense of what they're trying to accomplish. He's American, Black American, I think of Haitian descent, and he makes a lot of videos with a woman who's Jewish. I believe she's Israeli, who uses the name Emily Saves America. And I just want to show you one of the videos that they produced that I guess they and whoever they're working with assumed would be an effective pro-Israel messaging campaign, while I kind of as a Jew think it would do exactly the opposite. But let's just take a look at the kind of way they're trying to use this Gen Z appeal for a very sinister agenda. Let's take a look.
Imagine supporting people who start wars just to lose the wars so they can cry about it and then try it all again.
You musty anti-Semites are literally obsessed with Jews. Now walk with me. While you musty anti-Semites are stacking eviction notices, Jews are out here stacking up businesses.
Jews control all the industries. Maybe if you spent more time taking notes from successful people, you wouldn't have to spend your nights and weekends spreading hate from your anonymous account with an anime profile picture.
Do you work as hard as Jews? Do you network like Jews? No, because you're too busy cheering on a group of musty terrorists who smell like dirty earring backs. And if we're going to keep it real, you're really mad because your income is giving side hustle.
Period.
How you going to hate from outside, Shabbat? You can't even get in.
No, the thing that's kind of amazing to me about that, Nick, is that it's almost like material lifted right out of Mein Kampf. It's essentially saying Jews control industry, Jews own all your real estate, Jews are, piling up huge amounts of money in banks, but it's not really ostensibly deployed for anti-Semitic ends. I guess it's a way of saying the reason you're resentful towards Jews is not because the Jewish state is committing a genocide in Gaza, but because you're jealous of all the money and power that Jews have amassed. But you see the kind of Gen Z vibe. You have this black gay influencer who's using, kind of a very familiar identity politics sort of posture in order to suck in the people into this message. I don't know. This seems very ineffective to me, very cringe to me. I mean, has the material that you've seen, the content that you've seen, any better than this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that influencer even deleted his that video because of the responses that people were giving to it. I think I think what I'm most curious about is getting to the bottom of who these influencers that are being paid by Israel are, because otherwise it's like we just don't know. There are a lot of people that are posting that are very pro-Israel, that are saying these things, that are making, as you said, offensive content like that, and also denying a lot of the facts on the ground, making all kinds of claims about the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation that aren't true. And we just don't know which influencers are being paid by Israel and which ones aren't. And that's something that we need to be able to discern, because it is true that there are a lot of people out there that have these views, that are very pro-Israel for ideas completely independent of these paychecks. But then there are also these cohorts that are being paid by Israel. And I think I'm very curious, like, this firm registered under FARA, but are there any other firms out there that are being paid by Israel that aren't registering? I mean, how deep does this go?
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason why polling data has collapsed for Israel is not hard to understand. It's because everybody has watched over 2 years while the Israeli military has blown up children and starved an entire population and blockaded it and prevented food and medicine from entering. Just last night, we had a doctor from New Jersey, an ER doctor who spent 2 weeks in Gaza, who just came back and described the malnourishment, the starvation, the horrors that he saw. And so, I think it's going to take a lot more than sort of playful Gen Z TikTok videos to undo this. All right, so let me ask you something. And I mean, really, let me ask you this. I want you to pay attention. Let me ask you. I have a question. I don't often have questions, but I do here. How much time do you spend every day on a web browser, clicking around, searching, scrolling through endless tabs? It's a lot, right? Well, there's a new AI-powered browser from Perplexity called Comet, and it completely changes how you interact with the web. Using Comet feels like having a personal assistant living right inside your browser, one that can actually do things for you, not just give you answers, but literally click, type, scroll, and search just like you would, getting tasks done in the background while you focus on other things. I've been trying it out, and it takes a little while to get accustomed to it, but here's what ultimately blew me away. I had Comet find a restaurant, for example, that fit my schedule. They then books the reservation, even sends a calendar invite to remind you, all while I was working on actually important things that were more substantive and demanded my attention. All I had to do was mention a few things that I was craving and how far I wanted to drive. Just give it parameters, and then it figures out the rest for you, all while in the background. It can also shop for you, summarize articles, book travel, or even bulk unsubscribe you from spam. Download Perplexity's new AI web browser, Comet, today by heading to pplx.ai/Glenn. And when you download, you'll get a free month of Rumble Premium as well. That's pplx.ai/Glenn. Take back your time with online with Comet. Thanks for watching this clip from System Update, our live show that airs every Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on Rumble. You can catch the full nightly shows live or view the backlog of episodes for free on our Rumble page. You can also find full episodes the morning after they air across all major podcasting platforms, including Spotify and Apple. All the information you need is linked below. We hope to see you there.